Hello, everyone. This is Tim, and I was thinking about a reverse dungeon today. When I was a kid, I think I saw a second edition AD&D book that talked about this topic, where they were, it kind of is like a one-shot idea to let the players play little goblins or kobolds, that sort of thing, in a dungeon, and have them defend the dungeon against the adventurers that come in and try to kill them. I have ran this 3 times at 3 different GASCons in the past. That's my local gaming convention. And I don't think it really matters what system you use with this. I ran this game with HARP, High Adventure Role Playing, that Tatsubo just reviewed a couple days ago, and I've reviewed the past. But really, I think the players just sank their teeth into the idea of the game. That it was a cool idea, and they really didn't care what system it was, as long as it was fun. And they could really just play kobolds or goblins or orcs, whatever the case may be. They seem to really latch on to the idea of playing kobolds, because kobolds have this kind of, I don't know, that they're kind of like a reputation that they're very weak, very easy to kill, and in a lot of systems they are pretty much cannon fodder. so, so what I did was I just pre-generated about, I think, 20 or 25 characters, and just gave them different names, multiple copies of fighters, wizards, clerics, whatever system you were going to use, and just have a big pile of them. And I started out, I just randomly would pass out a character, and I wouldn't have them pick them. And I think they were all first level, and I laid out the dungeon in front of them, which was basically just a fold-out cardboard dungeon like I've showed you guys in the past, just with 1 inch equals 1 square, and just mapped it out on paper and put cardboard backing on it. I don't even know where it is right now, but I used the same dungeon over and over again, except I would change things every time I would use it, or I'd change the scenario. I think the last one they actually attacked the local town at the very end to kind of eradicate the humans in the area, and they did a pretty good job of that. I think they poisoned the well, and I don't know, it was a lot of fun. But basically the idea is, I would think try to find a simple system, or whatever system you're comfortable with. Dungeons and Dragons, you can use a generic system like GURPS or BRP, really whatever you want to use. Even like Barbarians Lemuria, you can just kind of make it a fantasy version of that. But whatever system you like, and really sell the idea that you're going to be playing kobolds, or very, very easy things that are going to get killed by people, and don't get too attached to your character, because you're probably going to be playing another one as the adventurers come in and kill you. But one of the main ideas I wanted to do with this is to show them everything that was in the dungeon. Normally, all the things that only the GM would see, where the secret doors were, where the traps were, where the levers are to reset the traps. And if they, several times in the game, the characters would screw each other by turning the lever off. Okay, you can run down the hallway, and then they'd turn the lever back on and watch the other character get destroyed by the traps. Sort of just making sure they still work, that sort of thing, or just to be mischievous. But they had a lot of fun with that too. Like the thief in the adventure party would come in and disable the trap. At least he thinks he disabled it, because they would turn off the trap, and then he would oh well, it looks like it's disabled. And then as they'd walk through the door, they'd set the trap off again with a lever, and things like that. There was chores in the dungeon. In the very beginning, for some reason, the owner of the dungeon, he was the master. He was like this creepy, shadowy guy that was always performing horrible experiments on adventurers, and he kind of owned the thing. But he wanted fresh dead bodies out in front in the first room when they came in every day, without fail. And if there were no fresh bodies, the kobolds would have to go kill some of the townsfolk to put fresh bodies in the first room that they would go into. So that was one of the chores. Another one of the chores was guard duty, and there were several spots on the map that was marked as spots where you had to stand for guard duty. And if you failed your spot check when the master would come up to to find you, or like a listen check or something. If you failed that, he'd kill your character horribly, and then the player would get another kobold to stand in his place. And I always tried to tell the player, well, yeah, you're a new kobold, but you're standing at the guard duty, and there's a dead kobold right beside you because they didn't do their job. So that was a lot of fun. Another chore was cleaning up the dishes, cooking, that sort of thing. And I think I made like just an impromptu rule to see how bad the food was, and if you killed anybody with food poisoning. And I think some kobolds died from food poisoning. Another one of the chores was to feed the guardian, which was this I don't even remember what. I think it was like a large predator, like mutated cat kind of thing. But if I'd run this again, I'd come up with some sort of Cthulhu-esque tentacled creature or something horrible like that. If it was in like some pit, but they'd have to go down this long hallway and sneak down, open up the door, and shove in food real quick. And sometimes they'd pull back and they'd be missing their arms, or they get pulled into the room and they'd become part of the meal. So really, I tried to set up the dungeon as very dangerous, even for the kobolds themselves, to keep it in operation. There would be times when some of the different people would be over here, and the adventurers would come in like a different entrance, or like the back entrance, or a secret entrance that the kobolds didn't even know about, something like that. And where they'd teleport into the dungeon and really mess them up. But it was a lot of fun. I think, let me try to think of what else I put in the dungeon. There was a torture room. That was one of the chores. They had to torture people that they captured. And whenever they were done torturing them, finding out information about the town, they would put those bodies in the front. So there's feeding the animals. I think another job was cleaning up the old dead bodies and putting them in this dead body room. One of the players liked to just hang out with the dead bodies. He was like the creepy kobold. And I think we kind of figured out that he had some sort of like corpse rot disease. Like, he had like this fungus growing on him because he was always hanging out with dead bodies. And a lot of the characters came, hey, voices, yeah, I'm gonna go hang out with the dead bodies, things like that. And they really got involved in the role playing of it. And a lot of the game was actually them just arguing about who's going to do the chores, and just screwing each other over in minor ways, and practical jokes. Just pranks here and there. The whole trap thing, setting off, letting other kobolds set off the traps. Sometimes there'd be kind of like this hazing ritual, like when new kobolds would come in, we try to tell the players, well, your kobold is fresh to the dungeon. He really doesn't know any of this stuff. And the other kobolds wouldn't tell him how the dungeons really worked. Like, there would be like a trapped hallway and then a safe hallway, and the safe hallway was like behind secret doors. So the kobolds would always use the safe hallway and not the trapped hallway. Well, they never tell the new kobold not to use the trapped hallway. So the player would kind of go along with it, and they'd set off the traps. Sometimes die. The master was like really very powerful and evil, and if he didn't like the tone of one of the kobolds, he had this spell that he came up with, which is basically a spell that explodes kobold heads. So he'd say something, and their heads would explode and cover all the rest of the kobolds, and for whatever. Sometimes he'd just come out and kill one just for the fun of it, and I don't know. It was a lot of fun to run. I really enjoyed watching the players try to defend the dungeon against your stereotypical adventuring party, and basically the rules were reversed, and they would try to come up with cool ways to modify the dungeon in different ways to kind of set up traps of their own, basically low-level kobold traps, like, old cans and string and, whatever they could come up with. I was more than happy to let them try to do any of that stuff. But it was really fun. So if you ever want to do a reverse dungeon for like a convention, a one-shot, maybe something to do for your normal gaming group that is kind of getting burned out, or maybe you're getting kind of burned out on whatever game you're running, just make a dungeon, make it so that you can put figures on it, to show where all the kobolds are in the dungeon, and make sure it actually fits on your table. So don't make the dungeon bigger than your table, because really that's going to be the centerpiece of the whole thing. It's going to be out there for them to see the entire time. Come up with ideas for traps, where the traps are located, how to set them off, how to reset them. Maybe after the thief comes through and destroys the traps, there's somebody that has to fix the traps. So maybe that's someone's job. Sorry about that. I forgot that my webcam cuts off at 10 minutes. I think what I was saying is just basically just plan out your whole dungeon and don't hide anything from the players at all. In fact, that's kind of the fun part. They get to see all the inner workings of the dungeon, minus like the master that lives in some dark recess of the of your basically your maze, your dungeon. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a good one shot. I don't know if it would necessarily work for a good long-term campaign. Maybe 2 sessions, maybe 3, or like a mini campaign, I would think. But it's a nice change of pace, and it was a lot of fun. And the prep work really isn't that involved, because really it's like any other prep work. You have to make a dungeon, and just make like one level of a dungeon. That's all you really need. That way you don't have to move it off the table, and maybe come up with a small town nearby that the adventurers come from. But it's a lot of fun, and it's well worth the effort, and I think your players will like the change of pace, and I don't know. It's a good way to play an evil campaign, but not really have to deal with the problems of an evil campaign, because you have no real investment in the characters. Your kobold dies, you get a new one, so it's there really isn't that whole like, okay, you're gonna stab me in the back and take all my stuff when I'm not looking at you, that sort of thing that happens in evil campaigns sometimes. But yeah, let me know if anybody out there has ever ran a reverse dungeon, and if you like the idea, or if you run a reverse dungeon after watching this. I'd like to hear about it. So, all right, everyone, have a good one. I'll talk to you later.